Fire 'em up. We are fired up. Today is a Founding Fathers Friday, and it's a very special edition of the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB because it's Good Friday. Yep, you are tuned in to the Andrew Gosser Show, and we are streaming on Rumble. We are streaming on X. We are streaming on YouTube, and we are streaming at the mothership, WYAB.com. So if you can't pick up the 50,000 watt blowtorch that is 103.9, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe the stream. We'd appreciate that. Also, give me a follow on X. It's just at Andrew Gosser, AndrewGasser. And if you want to be part of the program today, it's simple 601 879 0002. If you want to go ahead and text the show, 601 879 5060. And the mission here at the Andrew Gosser Show is standard. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? You all are the saints. And this show is all about education and information and entertainment. I always try to bring a teaching perspective to it. It's just how I was raised, how the military trained me, always made me an instructor, then an evaluator, QAR, always building up leaders, always forming the next generation. And today is Good Friday. And I was having a discussion with a buddy of mine who is an atheist, and he and I got into a really good debate, and it wasn't like shouting or fighting or anything like that, but we went down a rabbit hole together, and I wanted to talk about that because it's one of the things that it's really hard for Christians to do is talk about the crucifixion without running to the Bible. And I wanted to go ahead and prove because everybody sits there and watches YouTube. We don't read books anymore. It's just a fact. Generation Z is the last generation to actually read books. Generation Alpha is already completely behind the power curve. They are more uneducated, less likely to make critical decisions for their age, having a hard time reading. They're not learning phonics. It's an unmitigated disaster. And so I wanted to sit there and learn about, hey, what are the historical records for the crucifixion? I'm not talking about the resurrection, just the crucifixion. And you'll see why I'm getting to this in a minute, because this is not just a historical issue, but it's a cultural issue. It's an American issue. And we are at a point in an inflection point where we're about to go over a line that we do not want to go over. And I'm not even sure we can save it, to be honest with you. People are, I was just talking with Brother Rick, for Israel, against Israel. Are you for the war or against the war? And the thing about it is what's going to happen is going to happen. But there are all sorts of historical records that many who are older than me know about, and many who are younger than me may have never heard about. The first one is a Roman historian, Tacitus, and I said that right, Tacitus, the most important and clearest non-Christian reference. While describing Nero's persecution of Christians after the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD, Tacitus explains the origin of the movement. Christus, from whom had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procreators. Can't never ever say that name. Pontius Pilate is what I'm trying to get at. And most mischievous superstition, thus checked for a moment, broke out not only in Judea, the first source of evil, but even in Rome. And what's really critical here is this guy didn't believe in Jesus as a Christ, didn't do it, just recorded the history. Pontius Pilate was the one who ordered the crucifixion. And they recorded that the dates that Pontius Pilate was the governor of Judea from 26 AD to 36 AD, which I didn't know. And when we talk about the founding father today, it was I didn't think I would be able to beat Charles Carlton of Charlton. But this guy may have actually beat it. And as we sit there and we read history and we force ourselves to learn, it expands our brains in knowledge base so that we can have these good discussions. Jesus, who we call Christus in this summary, was executed, extreme penalty, by Pontius Pilate, the prurator and governor of Judea from 26 to 36 AD, under Emperor Tiberius, 14 to 37 AD. These are all facts that are validated by a non-Christian, and this is considered, even atheists accept this, agnostics accept this, Muslims accept this, Jews accept that he was crucified. They'll accept this, and of course, Christians accept this. It's highly considered reliable by most historians because of Tacitus had access to Roman records and was disdainful of Christianity. So this guy didn't even like Jesus, which is makes it even more significant. And we don't teach this in our schools. Heck, your church doesn't even teach this part of it. And if you look at the whole society in general, we can't defend our own societal norms anymore. We can't even defend things like the 4th of July. We can't defend things like Good Friday or Easter or Christmas. We can't even defend Thanksgiving. We've become so inoculated and inundated with social media and the AI slop, brain rot, that our ability to critically think is rapidly going down the drain. We've got another guy, Flavius Josephus. Josephus, a Jewish writer who worked with the Romans, includes the famous Testimonium Flavorium passage about Jesus. The text is, as it survives, has some clearly Christian-sounding phrases that most scholars believe were later additions or modifications by Christian copyists. However, there is broad consensus that the authentic core remains, referring to Jesus' execution. And this is just what it says, and I'll read the key points with it. And again, I'm not doing this to preach or beat you over the head, but if you're an American and you want to understand why you're getting today off, why the banks are closed, why the schools are closed, why a lot of businesses are open, why we've had it for a holiday since our country was founded, you need to understand this. It's almost like a civics class from a non-Christian point of view. This is what Flavicus had to say. About the time lived Jesus, a wise man. He went over many Jews and many of the Greeks. And when, upon accusation of being the principal men among us, Pilate had condemned him to a cross, those who had first come to love him did not cease. Key points. Jesus was condemned on the cross, crucifixion by Pilate. At the suggestion of Jewish leaders, Josephus also mentions Jesus' followers continuing afterwards. A separate, undisputed passage in Josephus Flavius refers to the brothers of Jesus who called Christ, whose name was James, confirming Jesus' existence and family. And that's the big thing there. People don't realize, but Jesus' brother, half brother James, didn't want anything to do with him while Jesus was alive and was actually very critical. But in the end, when he saw this, he came about and turned around his ways. There's also Lucian of Samosata, Greek satirist. And again, these are all people who are not Christians, and these are not anything to do with the Bible at all. So all of you freedom of religion people, here you go. This is how you get there. And then there's another one named Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud. And they all basically cover the same points. They point out that Jesus claimed to be the Son of God, that Pilate ordered him to be crucified, and that he was crucified. Some add details saying that it was the Jewish people leaders who wanted Jesus to be crucified. And you can Google this. I'm pulling this up from, uh, agnostic.com and also using Grok. and I have not turned to the scripture at all, and you notice when I start my show, I always try to have a little bit of scripture. I did not do that today. I did not do that today. So why did I spend the first segment of my show talking about why we celebrate Good Friday? Well, as I was doing show prep today, Spring Holiday was trending on X, and I'm like, Spring Holiday, what's that?" And the city of Houston has put out an important announcement. Due to the spring holiday, the city of Houston's offices will be closed on Friday, April 3rd. Mayor John Whitmore, I think is how I say it. The text is way too small. Need new glasses. They're going to be here soon. So that's how the city of Houston talks about Good Friday. I don't I did not actually go to look to see how the city of Jackson or the village of Terry or the city of Brandon or Madison announced that they were gonna be closed on Good Friday. Did they call it a spring holiday? I don't know, but this is what I do know. Happy Eid al-Fitr. That's how Houston announced Eid this year. Mayor John Whitmore. Do you see what's happening here? Andrew, that's Houston. I thought it was only New York and LA. It's growing and spreading everywhere, and we're losing our American culture. We're losing our ID. I don't say these things to, like, bash people over the head or be awful about it, but I do say these things because if our ears need to be listening and our eyes need to be open, and if we can't see what's happening right here in our own country, in our own state, we're gonna lose what made us great, the greatest nation ever to be formed on earth. Sure, we got flaws, we're all human, we all fall short, but when I look at the consumption of what our young kids are being taught in schools, when I look at scores across the board for Generation Alpha and how they can't read. You know, Toots McCracken had prom last night, and we were talking about how some of her kids that she sees, she helps out with the earlier kids. She's like, "Yeah, they're a little bit wild, they're a little bit crazy." There's plenty of articles that talk about teachers who are having a harder and harder time controlling their classrooms at earlier ages. Why? Are we not teaching what our values and culture and norms anymore? Are we raising our kids on iPhones and iPads? Oh, just stick them in front of the TV and shut them up. There's responsibilities with being parent, and that includes passing down our important heritage and history and the reason we celebrate Good Friday. And I never want that to be lost upon the state of Mississippi or within the listening audience of this radio program. It is what it is. And if we can't take a few minutes out of the day to recognize that, then do we really deserve all the blessings and benefits that we get from the religion that is Christianity? You are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB. We'll be right back. And we are back here at the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB. And this segment is brought to you by who? Cowden Electric. Marty Cowden over there. Great dude. Came over to the farm yesterday to look at our electrical issue that we had. And let me tell you, the service that Marty provides is absolutely fantastic. And I'm grateful and thankful for him. You know, it's funny. We got lots of great sponsors here at WYB, and you think that the on-air talent just sits there and promotes that stuff, but we use a lot of these services that we promote. And when I go ahead and get great service from somebody who's providing a service to me, I want to make sure that I acknowledge that. Everybody always tells you, or doesn't ever say anything when you do a good job, but if they do a bad job, all of a sudden they go on Yelp and they go and they start talking all this trash online. Marty, I really appreciate you coming out to the farm yesterday and helping us out. And it's not finished yet, but I just wanted to give Marty that plug. And I wasn't gonna with that, I wanted to talk about an issue that is starting to sweep across the internet now, and I wasn't gonna talk about it. Brother Rick brought it up, and now Brother Dogfish brought it up in the chat, and there are rumors being circulated that a F-35 was shot down by Iran, and then it changed to a F-15, and then there's clips that are being circulated of C-130 fueling Black Hawk helicopters on a rescue mission. And I'll just go to Citizen Free Press and see what I say there. And none of this is trending on X, by the way, which is kind of hard for me to believe because it's a big deal to shoot down an American warplane. And I'm not saying that it did happen. I'm not saying it didn't happen. But CENTCOM has been very quiet about it, and it's just my personal opinion. CENTCOM did put out a statement last night saying all aircraft are accounted for. On a fact check, you can go look there on their X. But this is my personal opinion on it, Dogfish and Brother Rick. We have been so conditioned by our news media, by our culture, that we are impervious to attack. And we are so damn good at what we do that when something does happen, it gets a lot of attention, a lot of negative press. And I think about World War II and the bombers that we lost on a daily basis. I think about what happened in Vietnam. And we are truly a victim of our own success, of our own brilliance, our tactical prowess. You know, a lot of people always say, "We're the best, we're the best." No, we really are the best. But it's not like the warning signs weren't out there. Everybody saw the F-18 barely get missed by indigenous surface to air missile. Iran put that out there. And Iran's made so many of these claims. It's like the boy who cried wolf. And it's been debunked every time. And like I said, I went to X and CENTCOM, and I don't see anything there. And I feel like that if there was something there, that there would be something put out by CENTCOM. But then again, they might be in the middle of doing something. And somebody who I trust on X, Nick Sordor, again, part of the Techniques, Tactics, and Procedures Tuesdays, TTP Tuesdays. I've got a list of news sources I can immediately go to and figure it out. And Nick put this out 36 minutes ago. For the first time since the beginning of Operation Epic Fury, Iran has shot down an American fighter jet. USAF combat search and rescue teams are currently looking for 2 F-15 pilots in Iran. Well, and their statuses are unknown. Please pray for these pilots. Well, it's a single F-15E Strike Eagle, so it's a two-seater. So you got a pilot and a Wizzo. And apparently this is near the Straits of Hormuz. And there's all sorts of videos out there circulating of planes flying around, some of them who I'm not gonna say whether they're CSAR or not, I would know, but I'm just not gonna validate anything of what else I see. I did look at pictures of the wreckage, and in my unexpert opinion, it does look like it could be real. I don't see any of the signatures of AI slop. If you've seen Iran's AI footage before, it's been pretty horrible, and there's always been clear definitive markers on it. But AI is improving at the speed of light, and don't think that Iran doesn't have hackers all around the world who are trying to continuously generate information. A and what kills me the most is that our own news media, in an effort to try to tell us as much information as they can, they're not really helping the American public by this, but they are aiding Iran, and once this is resolved one way or the other, I'll talk about why it's wrong and why I get so fed up with our news media. Will we talk about all the great things we did over there today? Nope. We'll just find the 1 or 2 things that cause sensationalism, that causes the clicks to skyrocket, that causes American people to start talking about it, sowing seeds of dissension within the American public. Have the American public turn against its military. They're over there doing work, and I get a little bit choked up over it because I was one of those flyers, and, having worked with those types of missions before, it's stressful. And Dogfish, so is it real, is it not? Well, if you wanna believe CNN and Nick Sordor, apparently it is. I sit there and I keep an active list of what's going on during the show, like, I had, like, a whole segment today that was gonna be on Pam Bondi, but does that really matter right now? I mean, everybody's saying nice things about Pam Bondi now, but the truth of the matter is she didn't execute. She didn't get the wins that we were all expecting. And there is some stuff I wanna talk about that, but with all the text messages coming in about the F-15E apparent shoot down, and I can only imagine what my 3 pro-Hamas, pro-Iran, anti-Israel folks are saying. I've had to mute them for 30 days, and I'm just being truthful with you. I you are what you can consuming, and I'm not telling you not to consume information from the other side. But man, when you have that stuff just rammed down your throat, when you have these people who are terminally online, clicking refresh every second, that's just not me. I hope it's not you. I hope we realize the importance of today, and we have our United States Air Force and military services who are serving all around the globe, not just in epic fury, but we lift them up in prayer because they're doing a dangerous job, and I'm sure that they would appreciate it. So those are my thoughts on the parent shoot down. We'll find out more. I can still actually remember the first shoot down from Gulf War One. An A6E is the one that I remember personally, and the BN Jeffrey Zahn, who ejected and was a prisoner of war for a long time. That is not fun. And for those of us who've gone to Happy Valley, we understand the seriousness and the gravity of this. All of us who are flyers, you know, it's not all Top Gun uh, lifestyle like Hollywood would have you believe. There are real world ramifications that we do every time we strap on a jet, every time we step, every time we put on a G suit, every time you put on a flight suit. You know, the heavies, we don't always wear G suits, but when we get backseat rides, we do. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Be right back. Hey, brother, you there?
Yeah, man.
Hey, I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to come back and start talk Pam Bondi. And you said you wanted some time,
All
so
right.
give me a sec.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show. There's only one way to start off this segment, and that's with this video clip right here.
Side.
rape, homicide, manslaughter. That's who they're trying to protect in Minnesota. I do not understand these people. We sent Governor Walz a very strong letter today. We had been working on this letter. We got it out saying that he better support President Trump. He better support the men and women in law enforcement.
That's enough. I'm glad that we're never going to have to listen to that again. And on the phone, I believe I've got Brother Rick. Brother Rick, are you there?
Here.
We were talking about this, and you said you had some comments on our former Attorney General Pam Bondi, and I just wanted to make sure that you got them in, because after this segment, we're not going to talk about Pam anymore. She's yesterday's news, you know?
Yeah, if you can, I'd like to go over all of her accomplishments.
Oh, well, we got about 10 minutes, so let's hear them.
I'm done.
Yep, that's about what she's accomplished. And
I mean, but the guy, y'all got to understand, Todd Blanche is the second in command, and now he's got 30 days supposedly to head up the AG's office. And this guy has been a lifelong Democrat. He's never really accomplished anything other than getting cases that were legit cases thrown out, like the auto pen and things like that. He got all those investigations cut down. So don't expect any fireworks for the next 30 days. So, deep state for the win.
It's really sad, because we had a lot of high hopes when we got Pam in, and she said all the right things in the first 30 days. And if you
yeah, but see, I've never. Maybe you can explain it to me,
mm-hmm.
and maybe I need some crayons to understand. But why, when she went in front of Congress to testify about the Epstein files, she kept talking about the Dow is 50,000? I know everybody talks about that, but what does one have to do with the other?
I think you're exactly right, Rick. And I say this over and over again. I think this is the one place where President Trump has really stepped in it, and it is a misstep for him. There's no other way to couch it, say it. He has completely underestimated the impact of the Epstein files on the American psyche. This isn't just a MAGA issue or a Republican issue. This is,
and it's not going away.
Oh no, it's not, and it can be fixed. It can be rectified. But those of us who are in the sensible middle, and those of us who are on the left, who aren't whacked out, gauged out earrings, crazy nose rings, blue hair zombies, it's a big deal for those on the left too. I talk to Democrats, and they are just as upset about not prosecuting the Epstein files just as much as we are.
Well, here's where Epstein files have gotten me. I've never voted for a Democrat in my entire life. I never have. But if you had one come out and he or she seems to be legit, the background seems, decent, like an RFK background, a Tulsi Gabbard background, something like that, and the only thing they ran on was, we're going to get to the bottom of the files no matter who it burns down, I would vote Democrat.
I would have to say I would too. And I think this is what, and people are like, Angie, you can't say that, you're a Republican executive committee. Look, we vote the person, and we vote Republican, and I believe with the Republican platform. But when the Republicans are out there talking about being on the Republican ticket and doing Republican things, and then they don't do those Republican things, well, then there's a problem. And that's why Trump won, by the way. Trump was running as a Republican, but was saying a lot of things that appealed to the middle and even to the left. And we're expecting him to deliver on those things. And to a lot of an extent, Trump has. But when it comes to the Epstein files, when it comes to Department of Justice, look, there's a lot of Democrats who know that they're Democrats who have fallen off the straight, Bill and Hillary Clinton. But there are Republicans on there too. And we need to make sure that they are held to the same standard of law that you or I would, Rick, because if we were on that list, we would be in trouble.
Oh, 100%. But it's not just the list. It's like, explain to me. All right, so I know I'm jumping all over the place, but like Lindsey Graham.
Yep.
How does he keep getting elected? I just don't understand it. I know the incumbent carries weight and this and that and the other. But, I mean, he's walking around Disneyland by himself with a pink princess wand. He doesn't appeal to masculine men. He doesn't appeal to anybody that I know, but yet he never gets a real challenger. I just don't understand it. How does that work? You've been a politician before. How can somebody say that they fed, especially now with the Israel topic being so hot? No matter which side you stand on, it's a hot topic, and he just doesn't get any pushback from anybody. I don't get it. Or Ted Cruz for that matter, or and Ted Cruz said, I ran for Congress to be the best I could be for Israel. He said that on TV.
Yep. So what I would say is the big money at the high end of politics is really big. It's easier to overcome in local elections, and I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying I'm an example of it. You can run up.
Yeah, 100%.
You can run up against a dynasty, a nepotism dynasty, like we did in Illinois. 52 years, same family having control over this, and I mean, when you look at the money that's involved, people were spending hundreds of dollars to get millions and millions of dollars of contracts.
Well, let me ask you this: you've been on the inside.
Yep.
What does the inside hear from the outside?
What does the inside hear from the outside? Have you ever watched
the inside fear?
Oh, yeah. Inside fear? They really don't fear anything. To be honest with you, because they know that if they really need it, they can just dump thousands and thousands, millions and millions of dollars. I'm just using examples that I've seen personally. Where what is South Carolina seeing in Lindsey Graham? The same thing that Minnesota sees with Roger Wicker. They know that Lindsey Graham is very powerful. He's on a lot of influential communities. He brings home the bacon, and he takes care of his constituents. And the mainstream Republican voter sees that and likes that. Never mind if you do any type of investigation into his personal life, it would really make you wonder with the ladybugs and everything. I'm just saying. But, you go and look at that, and there's problems there. So, like, if you were going to run against Lindsey Graham, you would have to announce, or you would have to start your campaign 4 to 6 years beforehand. Because
they're going to see. Here's the problem that happens. That you start your campaign 4 to 6 years, whatever. It could be 4 to 6 months. It doesn't matter. They don't.
Years, not months.
Pam Bondi was a fine excuse. They're not going to investigate the inside. So they're going to come after you with a smear campaign, whether it's true or not, and they're going to try to destroy you with lawsuits and criminal things and this and that and other. And I mean, there's so many laws on the books. You commit 3 felonies a day, whether you know it or not. And so they get to destroy you, and they never get looked at inward. And I don't know how you fix that.
Well, you get rid of the amendment that Roger Sherwood put into the Constitution, basically where U.S. senators are appointed by the states, and get rid of that. It's really interesting. Founding Fathers Friday is going to be lit today, dude, because it's almost like divinity that he comes up today, and we're talking about senators because what I try to explain to grassroots conservatives who are thinking about running for office is you just can't think about doing it 6 months before the election. You have to start out years in advance, and you've got to build relationships. I mean, honestly, it comes down to relationships too. Look at Benny Thompson. Great example of this.
Oh God.
You say, oh God, yeah, but let me tell you what, Benny Thompson is 2 degrees away from knowing anybody in his district. He has touched so many lives. He has built personal relationships with so many people. And, our side, we have a thing in common too. We're just all ticked off at whoever's in power, and we want to vote them out. And we don't organize like the left does. I'm just being truthful. I'm not like trying to bash the Republicans. I'm just, we don't do things the way that we need to win, in my opinion.
Let me ask you this, because you're very smart. Wasn't there a time, and I can have this backwards, but where the representatives of the state, they voted on who the senator was going to be?
Yep, that's
like we didn't direct vote on senators.
Correct. That was overchanged in 2018, I believe, or 1918. Excuse me, 1918.
Right.
And it was today's founding father had a lot of things to say about it, and I'll talk about that part now. I'll talk about it again in the next hour too. But he genuinely thought that the people should vote for the people of the House, but they weren't up to date and influential enough to put their senators into office, which is why they had the state reps and the state senators, and with approval of the governor, appoint the U.S. senators. And it was really great because you had on one side, you had the people directly electing their senior executive and their Congress, and they had their state governments who were elected by the people appointing their senators. It was the perfect check and balance. And what we're seeing right now in 2026 is 100 and some odd years of not having that check and balance in place. Now the executive branch, some would say, is out of balance in power. Some would say the Senate is out of balance in power, and we all agree that
the Supreme Court is completely out of check.
The judiciary is just lost. Whether it be I mean, the only thing keeping this country afloat right now, quite frankly, is the Supreme Court. Because today there are another 3 lawsuits filed against President Trump. And again, it puts stops on things, and it just causes all sorts of problems, and the country can't move forward because it's all tied up in legal messes, and the lawyers love it. They're like, "Well, this is what the Constitution has been perverted with so many different, overrights and rules and laws that, we're having a hard time governing ourselves." I'll give you the last word because we gotta take a break here in a sec.
Yeah, but the other thing that the Supreme Court is too small to handle the country, and you've got all these small little federal judges that have been appointed that haven't proven themselves, and they're able to put an injunction in on the president's executive order and stop everything he's trying to do, whether it's right or wrong, whether you agree with it or not. How can some little appointed judge that nobody knows and boondocks over there have the same power as the president?
Well,
that's not how it was meant to be.
No, it's not, and it does get overturned, but like you see, it takes years to get in front of the Supreme Court. Brother, I gotta take a break. I gotta run. Thank you so much for the phone call, my man.
Have a good one.
Yep. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9. That was Brother Rick. We'll be right back. Yeah, welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB. Didn't even get to the Artemis stuff that I wanted to get to. Really didn't get a chance to talk about Pam Bondi, but the truth of the matter is that it appears we have lost a F-15E Strike Eagle with a pilot and a Wizzo who are unaccounted for. Not confirmed caught. They're not confirmed dead. They're not confirmed anything other than apparently, according to Citizen Free Press, the President of the United States has been briefed on the situation, and that's all that I know. I'll tell you that my heart is really heavy as a 21-year military retiree and as a flyer. And I think back to, like, all of my SEER training, and I'm just like, "Man," and you hope to God you never have to use it, but you thank God that you did. And, it's tough. It's tough. So we'll lift up those 2 people into our prayers, that pilot and that Wizzo, and we'll continue the show. We've got stuff. It's Good Friday. How can you call it a day that the Savior was crucified good? Well, it's good for us. I don't know, would you sacrifice yourself like he did for someone else? There's a lot of people who say they would, but when push comes to shove, do they really do it? Some would say military people give up their lives for their brothers. Yep, but Jesus did it for all of us, and it's just sad. And I'm getting all these different, alerts, uh, talking about how today in Little Rock, Arkansas, stadium turns mosque, schools push, hijabs, church fall, enclaves raise, and, it's right on today on Good Friday. So, I mean, it's not wrong to not wanna talk about these things. Our culture is under assault, and I'm not sure we're all on the singing from the same page. I'm not sure that we're all ready to walk through this fire that we're about to walk through. But this is the Andrew Gosser Show. You are listening to YIB 103.9 WYB, and we'll be right back. Yes, you are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB. This is hour 2 on Good Friday. It's also a Founding Fathers Friday, which is awesome. And if you want to be part of the show today, you can definitely do that. You can either call in at 601 879 0002, or you can text at 601 879 5060. We are streaming on Rumble. We are streaming on X. We are streaming on YouTube. We are streaming at the mothership that is 103, or that is WYB.com. Why do I always do that? I got to fix that. The mothership, WYB.com. If you can't pick up the stream, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. And let's continue on with the most important thing is that we are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? Y'all are the saints. And today's founding father is Roger Sherman from Connecticut. And when I was trying to do the random number generator after Charles Carlton of Charlton, I'll tell you what, I was hoping that I wouldn't get somebody really famous like John Hancock or Benjamin Franklin. And Roger Sherman came up, and I didn't know about this guy, but he's a solid founding father. Born on April 19th, 1721 in Newton, Massachusetts. He was born into a poor family. He wasn't rich like a lot of these plantation owners. Full disclosure, he was one of the few founding fathers who was an abolitionist from the start, was very much against slavery, wrote a lot of documents against it, and was one of the sounding boards all during the revolution to go ahead and try to make sure that slaves weren't part of the government. He was the second of 7 children, and his father died when he was a young kid. He was self-educated, and the thing about this is his self-educated, even though he was self-educated, he ended up becoming a member of the bar after writing legislation and letters. He submitted it to an attorney, and the attorney said, "I couldn't do any better than this." So this guy is really bright. He started off as a shoemaker and a farmer, and then worked his way up to a surveyor and opened up his own general store. He was doing this because he wanted to make sure that his siblings could go and get a better education than he did. Him and his siblings ended up moving to Connecticut, where they ended up going ahead and spending the majority of their life. He was known for his tireless work ethic, up at 5 a.m., working late into the night. He was considered plain-spoken, no-nonsense style. John Adams praised him as the clearest head and the steadiest heart, though he generally mocked Sherman's awkward public speaking. You know, I can appreciate that. Sometimes I would get up in front of people and start talking, and it would sound smooth as silk. If you ever got to hear me speak in front of the Mars Society back in 2016, I sound great. And then other times I hear some political speeches, and I'm like, Andy, what the hell are you doing? This is something that's really cool about Roger Sherman. He is the only signer of all 4 major founding documents. And I thought that was really cool. He's the only one. There's a lot of them who signed 2. There's 6 of them who signed 2, but he's the only one who signed all 4. Everybody called him one of the hardest working delegates for the Constitution and for the Declaration. He was always there. And one of the things that I found out about him is he actually took the first stab at the Constitution. And of course, John Hancock and John Adams got all the credit for it, but Roger Sherman actually got a lot of credit for that. And people don't realize that. And it's just one of these guys. And when we start getting into the Bill of Rights and to that, you're going to see just how incredible he really was. Things he served on. Major committees during the Revolution, 1774 to 1781. He was on the First Continental Congress, the Committee of 5, the Committee of 13, the Board of War Ordnance of 1776, Board of Treasury and Finance, Supply and Purchasing Committees, Indian Affairs, Post Office Administration. Yep, you can thank Roger Sherman for your post office. He also was on committees dealing with trade regulations, restrictions on commerce, military regulations, and planning for the 1776 campaign for our own independence. The best thing that he's probably known for, I want to make sure I get this right, is the the article in the Constitution that made to where the representatives were elected by us, the majority, the people, and the Senate was elected by the states. I don't know if you can hear that puppy dog out there, but man, it's loud. Originally, the whole Constitution was breaking down because the big states wanted majority rules and the little states wanted everybody equal. And this is Roger Sherman is the author of The Great Compromise, where he said, okay, the House will be elected by the people, but there will be one person from each state put forward by the state for the Senate. And that got changed to 2 senators per state. He then made sure that there was a movement in the founding states to say that new states that came on wouldn't have the same voting power that the original states did. And Roger Sherman was like, nope, everybody gets the same representation. So back then it was 40,000 people for one congressman. And every state ended up getting 2 senators. And that was Roger Sherman. They say that Sherman wasn't a flashy orator like Patrick Henry or a philosophical giant like Jefferson, but he was steady, practical, and kept the revolutionary government functioning. He handled the gritty details, money, supplies, military coordination, and governance. He was actually the first mayor of New Haven, Connecticut, and there's now a town called Sherman, Connecticut. And by the way, there are some great sources out there, both on the web and on YouTube. There is an hour-long presentation on Roger Sherman, and I can't recommend it enough because there's just so much stuff in there, and to try to pack that all into one segment would be difficult. And we kind of talked about it, but Sherman's most famous contribution came from the 1787 Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. The big states, like Virginia, wanted representation from Congress based purely on population. And Sherman stepped forward and became known as the Connecticut Compromise. And here's the other thing. He wasn't even supposed to be at this convention. There was another guy who was elected. Sherman was the backup, and he didn't want to go because of a smallpox threat. So we wouldn't have even had this compromise if that guy didn't chicken out from smallpox, which I'm not saying that, but living in fear is never good. This is craziness. Roger Sherman was a busy man. He had 2 wives. Unfortunately, his first wife died, so he got married twice. From his first marriage, he had 7 kids. From his second marriage, he had 8 kids, 15 children in total. My goodness gracious. And the thing that really gets lost in translation here is his faith. And on Good Friday, I just thought it would be important to just say some of his quotes on his faith because, again, you see it here in Houston. You see it around the United States. They're trying to strip away faith. Our founding fathers had strong faith. On the Trinity and God's nature, I believe that there is one living and true God existing in 3 persons, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, the same in substance, equal in power and glory. And I wish I would have been able to have this in front of my neighbor yesterday when we were talking about Good Friday and non-biblical sources, because it's a big myth that's being perpetrated upon us. On the scriptures, I believe the scriptures of the Old and New Testaments are a revelation from God and a complete rule to direct us on how we may glorify and enjoy Him. It's true. When we hear our founding fathers were agnostics or deists, that's not true. In fact, most of them were Protestants. And one of the things I found out about Roger Sherman too, and I almost forgot about this when I put it in my notes, was that he was very much worried about other Christian sects coming in and changing and diluting the law, specifically the Catholics. And if you remember from last week, Maryland was really worried about that because they were preeminently Catholic. So there was some conflict there. But one of the things about Roger Sherman that made him so awesome is he was always willing to compromise. He was always willing to compromise. On temptation and grace, true Christians are assured that no temptation or trial shall happen to them, but when they shall be enabled to bear, that the grace of Christ shall be sufficient for them. Yep. And you know, this you can see this all throughout his writings, and there's many writings you can go and look up. And this is what people said about Roger Sherman. Patrick Henry said that Sherman and George Mason were the greatest statesmen he ever knew. It was funny because George Mason and Roger Sherman would get into these debates on the Constitution, on the Declaration, and they would go back and forth with each other. And everybody always knew that when Sherman was getting ready to speak, he wasn't the most graceful orator. He wasn't the most well-spoken, but you knew that he had his facts and that it was going to be a good debate. He deserves infinite praise. No man has a better heart nor a clearer head. He cannot embellish. He can furnish thoughts that were wise and useful. He is an able politician and extremely artful in accomplishing any particular subject or object. He is remarkable that he seldom fails. And in conclusion, this guy ended up being a judge. He ended up being the mayor of New Haven, Connecticut, until he passed away at the age of 93. And he was very successful at everything he put his hands to. Did he win everything? Nope. He was the consummate politician. He would go in knowing that he needed to move the needle, and he was always willing to call people out, but willing to compromise. Something that this current president often does. He goes in and makes a claim, but he's always willing to make a deal. And I just don't feel like the majority of our politicians, one, have the Holy Spirit with them, but number two, aren't willing to cut a deal to make things happen. Or if they do cut a deal, I can hear Richard and Rick right now. They cut deals for themselves and screw us over. Well, that's the kind of deals, unfortunately, that the politicians today cut, not like our founding fathers. That was Roger Sherman, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed Founding Father Friday. I hope you spend a few minutes looking him up. He's got a lot of biblical and spiritual quotes out there, a lot of quotes on the Declaration and on the First Amendment, wanting to make sure that for the First Amendment, we had the right to our freedom of religion, that we could practice what we wanted to practice. And it's important that we spend time every week growing our intelligence, not on the Brady Bunch or K-pop Demon Hunters or whatever the latest TV show is, but on our history, because once we forget it, we're doomed to repeat it. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Be right back. Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 1039 WYAB. And we've got to talk about it because it's going on right now. That's the Artemis 2 mission, where we're sending 4 brave astronauts, 3 Americans and 1 Canadian, on a trip around the moon. It's not a pleasure cruise, I'll tell you that. And, we do these things to shake down the capsule to make sure it's going to work the whole way through. And there are some problems with it. I mean, let's not deny it. The potty is not working for number 1. They're having to use the piddle bags, but it's working for number 2. At least that's what they're saying right now. Man, could you imagine being on a 10-day cruise without a potty? Man, that doesn't sound fun to me. I've got some stuff pulled up here that I want to talk about. The other thing that was happening on the space station or on the Orion capsule is that their email's not working. Microsoft pushed this Copilot stuff, and it's being reported that the email system between the Orion spacecraft and the ground isn't working, and they've asked for help on that, and they remoted in. I don't know if they fixed it yet, but those are the 2 negative things that have happened. All the good stuff. Have you seen the pictures that the crew has sent back from Orion? They're breathtaking. They're inspiring. And I know yesterday we talked about all the spin-offs, but those are some of the good things. But just like anything in life in 2026, you've always got to make it about the racisms. You've always got to make it about wokeness. And this is something that when I first heard it, I couldn't believe it, but yet here we are.
Yeah, and they are going for all humanity this time, Apollo was all white men, and this time it's not. And I think that really speaks volumes for the journey that NASA has been on. And this is a much more representative crew. And you can feel emotional about that.
Can you imagine being a reporter? That's Sky Australia, by the way. Can you imagine having to put everything that happens in life through the racism filter? This guy must be a miserable dude. In 1969, Buzz, Neil, and Mike went to the moon for the first time. Mike Collins was the capsule commander or the orbiter commander, while Neil and Buzz obviously went down to the surface of the moon. But they were going for all of America. We didn't put everything through the prism of the focus like this social media buzz is controlling people to do. I don't look at life through the prism saying, "Oh, this guy is white. Is that good? This guy's black. Is that good? This guy's Asian. Is that good?" Who does that? People who are sick in the head are the ones who do that. But it gets worse than that. Listen to this. This is Victor Glover, who is a naval aviator and an astronaut, and is the pilot of the Orion space capsule.
It is a big question, and I want to highlight, I guess maybe one facet of this is the tension, I call it. I live in this, this dichotomy between happiness that a young woman can look at Christina and just physicalize her passion or her interest, or even if it's not something she wants to do, she can just be like girl power, and that's awesome. And that young brown boys and girls can look at me and go, hey, he looks like me and he's doing what? And that's great. I love that. But I also hope we are pushing the other direction, that one day we don't have to talk about these first, that one day this is just, and I listen to this, that this is the human history. It's about human history. It's the story of humanity, not Black history, not women's history, but that it becomes human history.
And that is how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. It is human history. At some point, you're going to run out of firsts. And we're all in this great experiment together that is America and humanity. And it's one side that's trying to divide and slice and categorize, and there's one side that's just trying to say, "Hey, can't we all just get along?" We have to. We cannot continue to sit there and rip each other apart and break each other up. Because if we do, our nation's not gonna last. It's gonna crumble. And eventually humanity will die out too. Although some people are already saying that's happening with AI, which in and of itself is a justifiable argument. You know, NASA, I would argue, is one of the few government programs that most people, I'm not going to say all people, but most people can get behind. I know that when Artemis launched the other day, even though I was very much against spending all the money, man, I was pulling for it as it was going up and taking off the tower. That's American. That's an American symbol of freedom and liberty right there. American prowess, American technology and engineering, American education. People don't for, people forget, but there have been women who have very prominent roles in NASA before. We've had female astronauts before. Sally Ride, the first American woman into space. I can't remember the Soviet lady's name, but she went up in like the early 70s, I think. Someone Google it and let me know. And of course, we had Krista McAuliffe and Judy Resnick. We lost both of them on Apollo, or I'm sorry, on Challenger. And we've continued to have women fly in space. We've had men of color fly in space. The former NASA administrator was a shuttle pilot and shuttle commander. And I know this is horrible, but as I get older, I forget names. I remember him, I met him at the top of top of one of the Senate buildings at a party. Great guy, really sweet man. Some people didn't like some of the decisions he made, but that's what happens when you're on the top. You've got to make decisions. Go ahead, you're on the air.
Yes, Andrew. Sam from Madison. How you doing, man?
Brother Sam, I'm hanging in there. Thanks for calling in.
Look, you and I have discussed everything before. My son is actually with NASA and the Air Force and works out of Patrick in Cape Canaveral, and actually worked on this top secret classified mission called SpaceX back in the day.
Oh my goodness, I remember that.
Yeah. And so anyway, one of the things we can talk about now, we talked about it a lot when it was classified and you couldn't talk about it. But anyway, my whole point is this, is that at his wedding, we were going around, we knew most of his friends and all, and there was this young lady that I'd not met yet. And so I went up and introduced myself and everything, and I said, so do you do whatever and whatever? And she goes, well, no, I'm not really on that side. I know it's going to sound nerdy, but she was the one that calculated the windows for each one of the SpaceX and the Space Shuttle missions.
Wow.
Like she said, yeah. She said, I'm when you talk about rocket scientists,
Yep.
I'm kind of the rocket scientist because, and people think that it just goes up, but you know, she had to calculate sort of like the liftmaster on a C-17 that you've got to know your weight and balance, how much thrust, everything else and all, is the runway long enough and all that kind of stuff, as to where they were going to meet up with the space station.
Yep.
As well as a lot of time people think, okay, sun's shiny, the winds are good for takeoff or liftoff, I should say, at Canaveral, but they have certain places around that if something happens on the shuttle, this is not with what just went up, but on the shuttle,
yep,
they would have different places in different countries that what they could do if something went wrong, they would be able to actually land at that country, so they had to have certain parameters met before they could lift off. And that's, with what you're talking about, people just are not aware, sort of like you say, because they can't get off of Survivor and
Yeah.
whatever the other shows and things like that.
You're exactly right, Sam. Their shuttle had the ability to abort to Spain, abort to Italy, abort to Australia. There were just different. There's so much that comes into effect with that. The winds aloft, the winds at all the abort sites. Maybe they could abort to orbit. That happened once or twice in the shuttle program too. They just aborted to orbit, and women have been really involved. People of all nationalities and all ethnicities have been involved. NASA is a big melting pot, and it's awesome to know that your son is doing great stuff out there.
Well, you talk about your winds aloft, even in commercial aviation. In other words, Delta, American, all that. A lot of people don't realize when they're up at 38,000 feet, 36,000 feet, the plane could either be going toward 100-mile-an-hour winds or have 100-mile-an-hour tailwind up there. And they don't realize on the other side of the skin of that airplane, it's 50 below zero. So,
absolutely. Or when they were flying the Concorde, the skin of the plane was hot. People could feel the heat radiating off the. So it just depends on the speed and the winds and all that kind of stuff. Sam, this was an awesome phone call, man. I'll give you the last word.
Well, no, I think it's great with space, but I think it's greater today, the next few days, that if people would just stop and realize that the greatest gift that's ever been given to mankind is not going into space, but our Savior giving his life for us to wipe away our sins and have the ability to be with him forever. So don't let it slide by. Take the time to realize what today is all about, and Sunday for sure.
Sam, I couldn't have said it any better myself. Thank you so much for the phone call, my friend.
All right. Talk to you later, man.
Be blessed. Be blessed. Man, Sam's dead on accurate right there. Calibrated by a NASA scientist, or NASA economist, rocket economist. We can sit there and do all the great things, go around the earth, go over around the world, do all the things. But without today and without Sunday, life would truly be meaningless. You are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Be right back. Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 1039 WYAB. Moving and grooving on this Good Friday. We're grateful and thankful for the sacrifice Jesus made for all of us. Citizen Free Press, I'm just trying to kind of follow the stream here of what's going on with the apparent F-15E being shot down over Iran. Apparently one pilot is rescued, and there's a lot of other reports coming in saying all sorts of crazy stuff, and I don't want to be part of that. And if I'm wrong, then I'm happy to be wrong. But I was just telling Brother Rick something's not adding up straight for me. Something's not adding up at all. Well, let's talk about some local stories. And I did peruse all the different local news sites, and I want to start with Magnolia Tribune and good old Russ Latino, who's the purveyor of Magnolia Tribune. Lawmakers owe Reeves a thank you for stopping Medicaid expansion. I just want to second that. I know that there's a group of Republicans out there who want to take the easy federal money, but just go look at Illinois now. Just go look at Illinois now. Mississippi lawmakers scrambled this section to plug the Medicaid budget hole. The Division on Medicaid sought $390 million more from the state for fiscal year 2027 to cover the existing population of recipients. See what they did there? They gave you all this free money and said it's not going to cost you anything for 5 years. But then the state all of a sudden has to pick up the tab afterwards. Someone's always left holding the bag, whether it be a stock pump and dump, whether it be a IPO kind of deal. Someone is going to be left holding the bag. And Governor Reeves was the one politician who apparently didn't buy off on all this craziness. When the dust settled, appropriators gave more than $200 million bump to the program. That pushed the state-funded portion of the program to well over $1 billion, and the total cost of the program to $8.5 billion. So Mississippi pays $1 billion. The feds are putting $7.5 billion into federal health care for the Medicare, Medicaid program in just the state of Mississippi. What about all the other states? When accounting for the huge federal contribution and separately collected provider taxes, the state had expanded Medicaid. Had the state expanded Medicaid, the budget would have been much deeper in the incoming years. Governor Tate Reeves faced a constant barrage of pressure, both under the Capitol dome and externally. For 2 years, he deserves credit, and we have. You can say all you want, and I know some of you all got some nicknames for Governor Reeves, and I don't fall for it. Don't want it. It takes real backbone to go up against your party and against the tide. I often think about the chosen fish swimming around in circles, and you'll see all the white fish swimming one way, and you'll see one or two blue fish swimming the other way, and one will all of a sudden flip around. It's tough to swim against the stream, go against the current, go against conventional wisdom, but we have to. And I'm telling you, you do not want to get brought down into this Medicare, Medicaid nonsense. Let's see what else here. Youth court reform dies amid Senate disagreement. That's not the one I wanted. There was one where the judges are getting a bump, but the teachers are not. And maybe it's right here. That's what I get for closing out my tabs. Well, long story short is that the judges, we've got 57 judges that are going to get somewhere around a $13,000 a year bump. But our teachers do not get that same bump. And it was by Frank Corder. Let's see if I can find it right here. Frank Corder. Nope, can't find it. Don't know. I care. Long story short is that the program to raise the judge's salary is going to cost the taxpayer $1.664 million. If they were to try to give the same 12%, and it's a 12% bump in pay, how many of you would like a single year pay raise of 12%? I'd take that deal right now. I'm pretty sure almost anybody listening to my voice would take it. If we were to do the same thing for the 30,000 teachers, you're talking $194,612,400 per year. And that's just for 1 year. And this is in perpetuity. And sometimes we get so emotionally involved and charged up in these discussions, in these pay raises, firefighters, police officers, teachers, and then we get upset when judges get this. And for me personally, I don't think judges need to get it. I'm quite disillusioned with the Department of Justice, both on the federal and local levels. So it doesn't break my heart, but I do think we could all agree that the one place that shouldn't get the pay raise are the politicians, but they'll get it. I got I can remember being a county supervisor and trying to make a motion to pull out the pay raise for the county supervisors, and the look I got because they knew I was in the right, and it didn't get seconded, and it ended up getting there. But I made them all look silly, and then it got in the paper, and of course, I looked like the hero. And I'm not saying I did it for that reason. I'm saying because I just didn't think that we needed it. We would go in for 2 days a month and get paid 25 grand a year, plus the home health insurance. We got the platinum plan. It was like $13,000 family health insurance plan. It was nuts. Trying to get rid of that. There's one more story that I want to save here, and this is coming from Jackson Jambalaya, and he posted this yesterday. But he has actually posted the social media of this young lady, this future rocket scientist, engineer, and astronaut, saying why Oxford sucks. And I highly encourage all of you to head on over to Jackson Jambalaya to go ahead and read it because it is and watch those videos because it is good. And I need to go ahead and have Grok count the number of times this girl says like. But the brain rot is real, ladies and gentlemen. The social media influencer rot is real. You don't want your son, you don't want your daughter doing that. And I appreciate Kingfish going ahead and putting the work to put all those videos together. And definitely after the Lindsey Beckham show coming up next on WYAB, you're going to want to check that out. You are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9. We're going to take our last commercial break. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Final segment of the Andrew Gosser Show here on April 3rd, 2026. Not the spring holiday like the city of Houston says, but Good Friday. Good Friday for all of us believers. And ladies and gentlemen, I am so grateful and thankful that you all give me the opportunity, all of the sponsors who support the show, support WYAB. I am truly grateful and thankful for you all. And I just wanted to get that out there on the front end before. And I didn't want to go full tinfoil conspiracy theory, but I've always been truthful and faithful to this audience. When I see something that just doesn't feel right, doesn't sit right. Apparently, we've lost a F-15E Strike Eagle today. And there are all sorts of reports. We rescued one of the pilots or the Wizzo, we're not sure. There's reports out there that a rescue helicopter got shot down. And the thing is that X normally has these things trending. You can see it trending all across. And there's absolutely no chatter about this whatsoever. Why? Doesn't that seem kind of odd to you? And I'm just curious if any of you and your news searches can see anything. I'm checking all of the places that I go to look for stories to report to you all. And I still have the other one where Celeste Hurst has passed has a abortion bill go through that stops abortion drugs from being mailed into the Magnolia State. This is coming from Frank Quarter. But before I get to that, doesn't it seem weird? I mean, I'm getting more text messages from people who are going out looking in other places for it and finding stuff. And I'm not saying that it's not incorrect, but it seems to me that either A, this is a complete psyop, or B, we are so conditioned to look at other things that it's not a big enough story to actually make a difference. Either one of those scenarios is truly frightening and scary. Number one, if it is a psyop and we're just trying to see how we're reacting, that's one thing. But if it is real, and I pray to God it's not, but if it's Israel, and let's just see what's trending here on X. And we're more worried about Roger Goodell, Kenner Giffen, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, Ryan Clark. If we're more worried about things like that than what's going on overseas, what's that say about our culture? What's about that say about us as a civilization where we can get sidetracked so easily, we just don't even care? I'll tell you what, we are living in some strange and dangerous times, ladies and gentlemen. And I pray that all of you either have somebody in your life that you can rely on, that you can have a bestie, or you've got a mom or a father, grandpa, grandma, uncle, auntie, cousin, second cousin, third cousin. I'll tell you what, on this Good Friday, I am so grateful and thankful that I do have a godly woman in my life who does sometimes have to steer the ship a little bit when the husband gets a little bit out there. And it was awesome because she put on a Seder dinner this week. It was wonderful, ladies and gentlemen. And I just want to encourage all of you to be that spouse that you can't wait to get home to see. I can't wait for the sweet pea to get home. It's going to be a great week. Prom was a success. Toots had a great time. Went out with Splinter afterwards. And ladies and gentlemen, we will see you in about 46 hours. Until then, take care, everybody. Be blessed, and amen.